Your phone buzzes with a critical message and your entire mood shifts. That sudden wave of frustration, that tension in your chest, can feel completely automatic and beyond your influence. Yet an ancient school of thinkers, the Stoics, uncovered a simple but profound technique to navigate these very moments. The Stoic teacher Epictetus taught, "We are disturbed not by things, but by the views which we take of them." This single insight shows us that our emotional strength does not come from changing outside events, but from guiding our inner responses. This video will explore the central Stoic approach to emotional balance, its foundational ideas, and its direct, meaningful uses for life today. You will discover a clear and practical way to build authentic inner steadiness, one that holds firm no matter what happens around you. How did a philosophy from 2,000 years ago create such a thoughtful system for mental strength? And what is the first step you can take right now to restore your sense of calm? What does genuine emotional freedom feel like to you? This ancient technique is called prosoche, a Greek word for mindful attention. Prosoche is the foundational Stoic practice, a continuous and gentle monitoring of your own mind. It is the art of noticing your initial impressions before they grow into powerful emotions. An event happens, your phone buzzes with that message, and in the split second that follows, an impression forms. This impression is not the emotion itself, it is the raw data, the first spark. Prosoche teaches you to pause right there, in that quiet space between the spark and the flame. The Stoics held that events in the world are neutral in themselves. They are just things that happen. The disturbance, the frustration, the anxiety, these arise not from the event, but from the judgment you layer on top of that initial impression. You might see the message as an interruption, an unfair demand, a potential problem. That judgment is what fuels the emotional fire. As Epictetus advised in his discourses, do not let the force of an impression carry you away. Instead, say to it, "Wait, let me see who you are and what you are about." This is the heart of prosoche. It is not about suppressing what you feel, but about understanding why you feel it. It is the simple yet profound act of questioning your own automatic thoughts. What if that message was not a demand, but simply a piece of information? How would your inner state change if you saw it not as a personal slight, but as a neutral occurrence? This practice of attentive awareness is the first and most important step toward genuine emotional freedom. That crucial moment between an event and your reaction is where your power truly lies. Think of your mind as having a gatekeeper, a quiet observer standing at the entrance. When a new impression arrives, like the feeling of critical feedback, the gatekeeper's role is not to slam the door. It is not to let the impression barge in and start rearranging the furniture of your emotions either. Its only job is to calmly look at the visitor and say, "Hello, I see you." The initial impression itself is just raw data. The feedback is simply words. The feeling you notice is that first, automatic spark. The Stoic practice is to notice that spark without immediately adding fuel to it by agreeing with its story. You feel the warmth of frustration or the coolness of discomfort, and instead of being swept away, you simply acknowledge the sensation. You might say to yourself, "I'm having the impression that this is an unfair attack." That slight separation, that moment of naming what is happening, creates a space for choice. You are not trying to suppress the feeling or pretend it does not exist. You are merely observing it with curiosity, refusing to instantly certify its judgment as the absolute truth. What if that critical comment is not a personal indictment, but simply information, however poorly delivered? By catching the impression at the gate, you reclaim the authority to decide what it means, and in doing so, you begin to master your inner world. This pause is the very source of your freedom. It is in that deliberate space between an impulse and your action that you reclaim control over your inner world. Without it, life becomes a series of automatic reactions, a chain where a single stimulus pulls you directly into a full-blown emotional response. Someone says a sharp word and you instantly snap back. A plan falls through and frustration washes over you without a moment of thought. This is the automatic chain that the Stoics sought to break. By inserting a conscious pause, you interrupt that circuitry. You create a gap, a breath of clarity, where you can see the situation for what it truly is, separate from the story your initial impression is telling you. The Roman philosopher Seneca captured this perfectly when he noted that we often experience more difficulty in our thoughts than in actual circumstances. That critical pause allows you to test this truth. It is in that quiet moment that you can ask, is this situation truly a crisis, or is my mind already building a future filled with concern and unease? The emotional charge often comes not from the event itself, but from the imagined outcomes we attach to it. Think back to a recent minor frustration. Perhaps you were stuck in traffic or received an unexpected bill. Recall the immediate surge of irritation. Now consider what might have happened if, in that moment, you had simply paused. Not to suppress the feeling, but to observe it. What if you had given yourself just 10 seconds of silence before any reaction? You might have noticed that the initial intensity of the feeling began to soften. You might have seen that the problem, while real, was not the emergency your first impression declared it to be. That small, intentional space is where your power resides. It is the difference between being a passenger on a runaway train and being the one who gently applies the brakes, deciding the speed and direction of your journey. This space you create through mindful attention reveals the true place where your reactions take shape. It is not the traffic jam or the critical message that causes your struggle, but the private response unfolding within your own mind. The Stoics identified this inner arena with remarkable clarity, teaching that our emotional state is never a direct result of an external event. It is always, without exception, a consequence of our internal assessment of that event. An event in the world is, in itself, neutral. It simply is. Your car standing still on the highway is a fact. The words in a message are just information. They hold no inherent emotional charge. The charge comes entirely from the meaning you assign to them. When you label the traffic as a disaster, a massive inconvenience that ruins your entire morning, that judgment is the source of your stress. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who constantly practiced this very principle, wrote in his private meditations, "Remove the judgment, and you have removed the thought, I am hurt." Remove the thought, I am hurt, and the hurt itself disappears. This is the heart of the inner shift. The event remains, the traffic is still there, but the sting, the emotional distress, vanishes the moment you withdraw the judgment that gave it power. The feeling of being hurt was never in the event itself, but in your interpretation of that event as personally difficult. Think of a simple rain shower. For a farmer in a drought, the rain is a blessing, a cause for relief and joy. For a family planning a picnic, that same rain is a disappointment. The rain itself has not changed. It is neutral water falling from the sky. The only difference is the meaning applied by each observer. Your own life is filled with similar neutral occurrences that you color with your assessments. A sudden change of plans can be judged as a frustrating disruption or an unexpected opportunity. A challenging task can be seen as an unbearable weight or a chance to test your capabilities. The event does not change, but your emotional world is completely transformed by the lens through which you choose to view it. The real power lies in realizing you can, with practice, choose a different lens. What would happen if you saw that traffic jam not as a personal attack on your schedule, but as a forced pause, a few minutes of unexpected quiet? The reality of the situation has not altered, but your inner experience of it becomes entirely your own. This ultimate power to choose your lens rests on a simple but life-changing distinction. The Stoics called it the dichotomy of control, and it acts as the final filter for every impression that enters your mind. The principle is beautifully straightforward. Some things are within our power while other things are not. What is up to us? Our own judgments, our intentions, the focus of our desires, and the actions we choose to take. Everything else, from the weather and the past to the opinions of other people and the final outcomes of our efforts, lies outside our direct command. The philosopher Epictetus began his famous Enchiridion with this very idea, stating that the chief task in life is to distinguish between what is ours and what is not. Applying this filter to your daily experiences instantly clarifies where your energy should go. Consider preparing for a job interview. You can control your preparation, researching the company, practicing your answers, and choosing your attire. You can control your effort and your attitude on the day. These are your actions fully within your power. The final hiring decision, however, rests with the interviewers. It is influenced by their needs, their internal dynamics, and the other candidates. That outcome is outside your control. When you stop trying to command the uncontrollable, a profound sense of relief follows. The anxiety that once swirled around the final result begins to dissolve because you have redirected your attention to the only arena where you truly have authority, your own performance. The goal is not to be indifferent to the outcome, but to be free from the exhausting effort of trying to manage what was never yours to manage in the first place. Every time you feel a surge of worry, you can ask yourself a single clarifying question: is this within my control? If the answer is no, you can gently release the mental effort, conserving your strength for the things you can actually influence. This is not giving up, it is growing wise. This profound shift in perspective finds its ultimate expression in a powerful mental exercise the Stoics called the view from above. Picture yourself slowly rising from where you sit, floating up through the ceiling and above your building, seeing the streets of your town or city laid out like a map. You continue to ascend higher and higher until the entire continent is visible, a vast tapestry of land and sea, and finally you see the earth itself, a beautiful, fragile blue marble hanging in the immense silence of space. From this cosmic vantage point, the bustling drama of human life appears in its true scale. The traffic jams, the heated disagreements, the personal ambitions and anxieties that felt so monumental just moments ago now seem almost impossibly small. This is not meant to diminish your experiences, but to recontextualize them. Your challenge has not vanished, but its overwhelming emotional weight has been gently placed back into proportion. Marcus Aurelius returned to this practice again and again in his private writings, reminding himself to frequently take this view of human life in its entirety, to see the great oceans of time and the infinite number of changing realities. He asked himself what is even worth serious concern when viewed against this vast backdrop. The goal is to shrink the problem, not by denying its existence, but by expanding the frame around it. When a personal challenge feels all-consuming, it is because your mental focus has narrowed to a pinprick, magnifying every detail into a crisis. The view from above pulls the lens back wide, revealing your entire life as just one small, precious part of a much grander whole. The next time you feel a wave of overwhelm, when a challenge at work or in a relationship seems to dominate your entire world, try this simple exercise. Close your eyes for just a moment and take that journey upward. See the situation and yourself from that great distance. Notice how the sharp edges of your frustration or worry begin to soften, not because the issue is trivial, but because you have reclaimed a larger, calmer perspective. The situation remains, but you meet it with a steadier mind, having remembered your true place in a vast and wondrous universe. And this is where the entire practice culminates, in a radical embrace of reality known as amor fati, the love of one's fate. This is not passive acceptance. It is the active, deliberate choice to welcome every single event, every obstacle, and every apparent setback as not just something to be endured, but as essential fuel for your own development. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Stoic thought, later captured this spirit perfectly when he wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." This is the ultimate shift in perspective, where you stop seeing life's challenges as interruptions to your story and start recognizing them as the very material from which your strength is forged. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this idea, reminding himself that an obstacle to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. A personal setback, then, is not a sign that your plan has failed. It is a piece of necessary data, a hidden opportunity disguised as a roadblock. Perhaps a project you poured your heart into falls apart. The initial impression might feel like a difficult moment, but through the lens of amor fati, you can pause and ask a different set of questions. What did this experience teach me about my own resilience? Did it reveal a skill I need to develop? Did it close one door only to guide me toward a better, more aligned path that I was too comfortable to see before? This is not about pretending the disappointment does not sting. It is about trusting that the universe, or the interconnected nature of all things as the Stoics saw it, is not acting against you, but is instead presenting you with the exact curriculum you need for your growth. The difficult boss, the financial pressure, the unexpected health challenge, these are not random punishments. They are the weights in the gym of your character. You would not expect to build physical muscle without resistance. Why would you expect to build resilience, patience, or wisdom without meeting its necessary counterpart in the world? Loving your fate means looking at the very thing you wished had never happened and saying, "You too are here for my benefit. I will find a way to use you." This practice of loving your fate finds its ultimate preparation in a powerful mental exercise the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of difficulties. Far from being a pessimistic fixation on what might go wrong, this technique functions as a kind of psychological vaccine, inoculating your mind against the shock and distress of future hardship. The core idea is to calmly and deliberately rehearse in your mind the potential challenges, setbacks, or transitions you might one day face. By visiting these possibilities in the safe space of your own thoughts, you strip them of their greatest weapon, the element of surprise. When a difficulty you have already contemplated actually arrives, it feels less like a devastating ambush and more like a situation for which you have already begun to build a plan. The Stoic philosopher Seneca was a profound advocate of this practice. In his letters, he explicitly advised his readers to rehearse in their minds the possibilities of financial change, of relocation, and of our shared human experience of change. He was not inviting despair, but rather building a fortress of inner resilience. He wrote that we should send our thoughts ahead to face all of life's possibilities, and not just those we hope for. By doing so, we ensure that we are not bewildered or broken by events we mistakenly believed could never touch us. Consider a practical example from your own life. Imagine you have a difficult conversation looming. perhaps a performance review at work where you expect to hear some critical feedback. The typical automatic response might be to avoid thinking about it, letting a low hum of anxiety color your days leading up to the meeting. Premeditatio malorum offers a different path. You would intentionally set aside a few quiet moments to mentally walk through the scenario. You would visualize sitting in the room, hearing the challenging comments, and feeling that initial flush of discomfort. But then, in your mental rehearsal, you would see yourself pausing, taking a breath, and responding not from a place of defensiveness, but from a place of calm curiosity. You would prepare your mind to see the feedback not as a personal attack, but as raw data to be assessed. When you then walk into the actual meeting, the situation is familiar. The critical words have less power to throw you off balance because you have already met them in the training ground of your mind. You have already felt the emotional spark and practiced creating space around it. This is the essence of the premeditation. It is not about expecting the worst to happen, but about being fully prepared for anything that does, leaving you unshakably composed and ready to respond with clarity, no matter what the world brings to your door. All these practices lead toward a single, powerful destination, the construction of an inner citadel. This is the Stoic metaphor for a core self so steady and resilient that external chaos simply cannot reach it. Your goal is not to build walls to hide behind, but to cultivate a central place of unshakable peace within yourself. This fortress is not made of stone, but of your own reasoned judgments and the consistent application of every technique we have explored. It is the mindful attention that catches impressions at the gate. It is the pause that creates space for choice. It is the discipline of distinguishing what is yours from what is not, and the perspective that comes from the view from above. Every time you choose to respond with clarity instead of react with chaos, you lay another brick in this inner stronghold. Marcus Aurelius, who faced immense pressure as the Emperor of Rome, often spoke of this return into oneself. He wrote that people look for quiet places in the countryside, by the sea, or in the mountains, but you can turn into your own soul at any moment. Nowhere can a person find a more peaceful and untroubled refuge than in his own inner awareness. This is the ultimate aim, to have a sanctuary you can access instantly, regardless of the storm raging outside. It is the difference between being a leaf tossed by the wind and being the deep-rooted tree that sways but never breaks. What would it feel like to carry that calm center with you always, a quiet room within your own mind where no external event, no critical word, and no sudden change could ever truly disturb your peace? This is the profound freedom the Stoics promised, a fortress not of isolation but of imperturbable strength, built one conscious choice at a time. The final brick in this inner citadel is a practice of radical clarity, seeing things exactly as they are, not as our fears or frustrations paint them to be. We rarely experience reality in its pure form. Instead, we see a version heavily edited by our own automatic interpretations and emotional narratives. This is the crucial difference between the simple fact of an event and the story we instantly wrap around it. A car moves into your lane closely becomes that reckless maniac is trying to cause an accident. A colleague sends a brief email becomes they are clearly angry with me and my job is in danger. The initial event is neutral, a simple occurrence. The emotional storm that follows is born entirely from the legend we build on top of it. Marcus Aurelius dedicated himself to stripping away this crust of legend, urging himself to constantly ask, what is this thing in its own nature, stripped of all the associative language and dramatic labels? He sought to perceive the world like a doctor diagnosing an illness with calm, factual precision, not the panic of a patient. This is the discipline of objective representation. The next time you feel a surge of emotion, pause and try to describe the situation to yourself in the most plain, unadorned language possible. Instead of "my partner was so insensitive and rude when they forgot to call," the factual representation is "my partner did not call at the previously discussed time." The event is identical, but the emotional charge of the first statement, laden with judgment and personal slight, is completely absent from the second. The first version ignites a fire of frustration. The second presents a simple fact that can be addressed with a calm conversation. Apply this to a terse email from your boss. The initial impression might scream, "I am in serious trouble," but the objective representation is simply, "My boss sent a message containing these specific 15 words." That is all that has truly happened. The anxiety, the dread, the imagined scenarios of being let go, these are all layers of legend you have added. By consciously stripping them away, you return to solid ground. You are left with the raw material of reality, which you can then assess with a clear and steady mind, free from the distortion of your own unchecked narratives. What power would you reclaim if you could learn to meet the world not through a filter of drama, but with the quiet eyes of a scientist, simply observing what is? This final discipline of seeing things clearly leads to a profound realization. You are not a solitary island facing a chaotic world, but an integral part of a vast, interconnected whole. The Stoics called this principle sympatheia, the understanding that the entire universe is a single, living, rational entity, and every person, every event, and every object is a thread in its grand tapestry. When you feel isolated or frustrated by someone's actions, this perspective offers a radical shift. That difficult person is not a random obstacle placed in your path. They are a fellow expression of the same universal nature, acting from their own understanding, however limited it may seem. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this bond, writing that we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of upper and lower teeth. To act against one another is contrary to nature, and it is acting against one another to be resentful and to turn away. Consider a moment of tension with a colleague or a family member. Your initial impression might paint them as intentionally difficult or personally opposed to you, but sympatheia invites you to widen the lens, see their behavior not as a targeted action, but as the outcome of their own experiences, their own unexamined judgments, and their own path within the universal order. They too are navigating life with the tools they have, however imperfect those tools might appear from your vantage point. This does not mean you must accept every behavior. It means you can respond from a place of patience and compassion rather than reactive frustration. You can engage with the person as you would with a hand that has momentarily cramped, not by criticizing it, but by seeking to understand the tension and working to restore its natural function. The next time you feel that surge of frustration toward another, pause and silently acknowledge your shared membership in this single community of existence. Your calm recognition of this connection does not excuse their actions, but it fundamentally changes your inner state, replacing the feeling of isolation with the steady calm of universal belonging. This constant friction between your desires and reality is a primary source of inner distress. Emotional turmoil rarely comes from events themselves, but from the relentless wanting of things that lie forever beyond your direct command. The Stoics identified this as a fundamental misalignment, a battle we cannot win, and they offered a clear path to peace through what they called the discipline of desire. This practice asks a simple but challenging question: are your wants in harmony with nature, or are they pulling you into a cycle of needless frustration? The goal is to train your desires to align only with what is truly good for you, which the Stoics defined as living with virtue and acting in accordance with your rational nature. Everything else, from wealth and reputation to perfect health, was classified as a preferred indifferent, something that might be nice to have but is not essential for a good and flourishing life. Your deepest well-being, your eudaimonia, cannot be enhanced by a larger bank account or damaged by a critical comment, because it is built entirely on the integrity of your own character. Epictetus framed this as the very essence of freedom. He taught that a person becomes free by correctly managing their desires and aversions, by wanting only what is within their power to achieve, and by avoiding only what is within their power to avoid. When you desire what is not up to you, you inevitably make yourself subject to circumstance, to other people's opinions, and to the unpredictable turns of fate. Consider the desire for public acclaim. You might work tirelessly, hoping for recognition and praise from your peers or your community. This desire, however, places your sense of worth and satisfaction in the hands of others, in a verdict you cannot control. The emotional result is a life of anxiety, constantly performing for an audience that may or may not applaud. Now, contrast this with the desire to act with integrity. Your goal shifts from seeking external validation to ensuring that your own actions in every moment are honest, kind, and just. This desire is fully within your power. No one can stop you from choosing to be honorable. When your primary want is to live virtuously, you reclaim your freedom. The outcome of your efforts, whether you are celebrated or overlooked, becomes secondary to the quiet knowledge that you have done your best. The discipline of desire is not about extinguishing all wants, but about redirecting them toward the only thing that can never be taken from you, the quality of your own choices. What would it feel like to want only what you can certainly have, and to find that it is more than enough? This discipline of desire naturally guides our hands toward meaningful action in the world. Your duty is to act virtuously for the benefit of the Commonwealth, the entire community of which you are a part. This shift in focus is profound, moving your center of gravity from what you can get to what you can contribute. The ancient Stoics called this concept oikeiosis, a recognition that we are not isolated individuals but naturally connected to a larger social body, and our highest purpose is to act for its good. When your primary intention is to serve that common good, a remarkable transformation occurs. The anxious preoccupation with personal reward, with whether you will be praised or compensated, begins to fade into the background. Your energy is no longer consumed by calculating your own advantage, but is instead channeled into the quality and integrity of your action itself. Think of a simple act like holding a door open for a stranger. If your mind is focused on whether they will thank you, a flicker of disappointment may arise if they walk through without a word. But if your intention is purely to offer a moment of ease to another human being, the action is its own complete reward. The outcome, their reaction, becomes irrelevant to your inner peace. This principle applies to your daily work, whatever it may be. You can approach your tasks as a mere transaction, a way to earn a paycheck, constantly measuring the effort against the compensation. This mindset can lead to frustration, or you can reframe your work as a service. The chef prepares a nourishing meal, the accountant ensures clear and honest records, the teacher shares knowledge. When you see your role as a vital thread in the social fabric, your labor is infused with a deeper meaning that transcends the fluctuations of praise or criticism. This is the heart of Stoic duty, to perform the right action with the right intention, and then to release your attachment to the results. The action itself, done well and for the common benefit, is the entire point. The rest is not your business. How might your experience of a routine task change tomorrow if you saw it not as an obligation, but as your contribution to the world? One of the few certainties in life is its eventual transition. This is not a dark thought to be feared, but a powerful truth to be harnessed. The Stoics practiced Memento Mori, a Latin phrase meaning remember you must one day depart, as a daily exercise in clarity and purpose. This was never about a grim obsession with an ending. It was about a profound reorientation toward your living moments, remembering that your time is finite and precious instantly sharpens your focus. It asks you to consider if the things that fill your days are truly worthy of your limited attention. The trivial frustrations, the petty grievances, the endless chasing after things that do not ultimately matter, all of this begins to fall away when viewed through the lens of your own impermanence. Marcus Aurelius counseled himself to live each day as if it were his final one, asking, "Is this the action of someone who will soon be part of history?" That question is a filter for your entire life. It does not mean you should live in a state of frantic activity, but rather with a deep and steady appreciation for the present. The natural horizon of life gives urgency to living, compelling you to stop postponing your integrity, your kindness, and your most meaningful work. Think about your own life for a moment. If you knew with certainty that you had only 1 month remaining, what would you stop worrying about immediately? The answer to that question reveals everything. The opinions of others, the pursuit of status, the minor inconveniences that currently loom so large, they would instantly lose their power over you. Memento Mori is the ultimate tool for perspective, a gentle but constant reminder to live not as if you have endless time, but as if this very moment is the one that truly counts. So much of our inner noise comes from a single, quiet phrase, if only. If only I had a different job, then I would be fulfilled. If only I had more money, then my worries would disappear. This is the mental trap that quietly steals our peace, constantly pulling our attention toward a future where contentment supposedly lives, always just out of reach. Stoic contentment offers a different way. It is not about having everything you want, but about fully wanting everything you already have. It is the profound shift from acquisition to appreciation, from chasing external possessions to cultivating an inner recognition of what is already here and what is already enough. The Stoics described a good life as one lived in harmony with nature, and a core part of that is recognizing the richness that simple, natural things provide. Your ability to breathe, to think, to walk outside and feel the sun on your skin, these are not small things. They are the fundamental gifts of existence, and they are available to you right now, without any requirement for your circumstances to change. Seneca expressed this with great clarity when he wrote that true wealth is not found in great possessions, but in having few wants. The person who constantly craves more is, in a sense, impoverished because their sense of lack is endless. The person who has learned to want what they already possess is truly rich because their source of satisfaction is always within their grasp. This is not a call to abandon ambition, but to anchor your happiness in something unshakable. Look at the simple, readily available treasures that surround you. The basic health that allows you to move through your day, the friendship of someone who understands you, the quiet beauty of a tree outside your window. These are not trivial. They are the very substance of a good life, and they are almost always overlooked in the frantic search for the next big thing. When you feel the pull of if only, pause and ask yourself a different question. What is already here, right in front of me, that I can appreciate in this single moment? The warmth of a cup in your hands, the sound of rain, the simple fact of being alive. This shift in focus does not change your external world, but it completely transforms your experience of it, revealing a wealth you already own. Anger can feel like a fire that ignites without your permission, a surge of heat that urges an immediate and forceful reaction. Yet the Stoics saw this powerful emotion not as something unavoidable, but as a kind of temporary madness, a brief departure from reason rooted entirely in one flawed judgment. They taught that anger is always, without exception, an optional path, one we choose by mistakenly believing we have been intentionally wronged. The Roman thinker Seneca devoted an entire work to this subject, his profound text on anger, where he examines it as the most destructive and unsettling of all passions. He observed that other emotions can have a certain quietness, but anger is all commotion and impulse. Its very nature is to push aside reason, to overwhelm our better judgment in a flash of heat. So what is the mistaken belief at its heart? It is the unquestioned assumption that another person has knowingly and willingly chosen to cause you harm. The Stoic response begins by challenging this very idea. The foundational Stoic principle, voiced by Socrates long before and embraced fully by the school, is that no one does wrong willingly. Every person, in every moment, acts according to what they believe to be right or good for them at that time. When someone acts in a way that you perceive as an offense, they are not coming from a place of pure ill will, but from a place of misunderstanding. They are mistaken about what is truly good. They might be misinformed, afraid, clouded by their own hurt, or simply unaware of the full effect of their actions. To become angry with them, then, is as unreasonable as becoming upset with a child who has not yet learned to read, or with a tool for performing its function. You are reacting to their lack of understanding, to their limited perspective, which is itself a form of struggle. The person who acts in a way that feels wrong is first and foremost moving away from their own virtue and reason. Your anger adds a second difficulty to the first, disturbing your own peace while doing nothing to help them see more clearly. So how do you apply this deep insight in the heat of the moment, when your pulse quickens and the urge to react feels strongest? The practice calls for a deliberate, step-by-step pause. First, you must create that essential space. When you feel the first spark of irritation, the first flush of warmth, your initial task is to do nothing. Do not speak, do not move, do not act. Simply hold the reaction in place. In that quiet moment, you then question the thought feeding the fire. Ask yourself calmly, did this person truly mean to harm me, or are they acting from their own confusion, worry, or lack of awareness? Is it possible they see this situation in a completely different way? This is not about making excuses for them, but about seeking a truthful understanding of what happened. Finally, widen the view. Consider the broader picture of this person's life, the challenges they might be facing that you know nothing about. Remember the vast, interconnected web of causes and conditions that led to this single moment. From a wider perspective, is this event worth the great cost of your inner calm? By following these steps, you are not pushing your anger down, you are letting it fade with the light of understanding. You are replacing a passing disturbance with a lasting clarity, realizing that the person before you is not your opponent, but a fellow traveler who has lost their way. Your calm reply then becomes a quiet lesson for them and for yourself in how to find the path again. Anxiety is a heavy tax paid on a fortune you may never inherit. It is the exhausting mental effort of trying to control a future that remains stubbornly outside your command, a direct violation of the very first Stoic filter. You are paying in advance with your present peace of mind for a potential hardship that may never arrive. This feeling of dread, this constant background hum of unease, finds its roots in a single misapplication of energy. We focus our attention on outcomes we cannot guarantee, on scenarios we cannot dictate, and in doing so, we hand over our inner stability to the unpredictable winds of chance. Epictetus offered a starkly simple corrective to this universal human tendency. He taught that there is only one thing we should truly fear, and that is the loss of our own moral integrity. Everything else, from financial change to shifts in reputation, falls into the category of things not up to us. The only genuine harm from a Stoic perspective is to act against your own character, to choose dishonesty over honesty or cowardice over courage. The anxiety you feel about external events is a sign that you have mistakenly placed your sense of safety in the wrong basket. You are fearing the loss of things that were never truly yours to keep, while neglecting the one thing you can always protect, your own principled judgment. So how do you reclaim that mental energy currently being spent on tomorrow's imagined troubles? The prescription is a direct and practical application of the Premeditation of Difficulties. When a specific worry begins to gnaw at you, take the vague, shadowy fear and bring it into the light. Find a quiet moment and write it down. Articulate the absolute worst-case scenario in plain, simple language. Do not dress it up in dramatic prose, just state the facts. You might write, "I could lose my current position and face a period of financial adjustment." Then, with this clear statement in front of you, you begin the deliberate work of premeditatio malorum. You mentally walk through this scenario not with panic, but with the calm curiosity of a strategist. You ask yourself, if this happened, what would I do? You break it down into manageable steps. You would update your resume. You would reach out to your network. You would adjust your budget. You see yourself navigating the challenge, not as a victim, but as a capable individual responding to a difficult situation. You realize that even in this worst case, you would still have your capacity for action, your ability to reason, and your inner resilience. The event itself might be challenging, but your ability to handle it remains within your power. By facing the fear directly and planning your response, you drain it of its emotional power. The anxiety loses its grip because you have already met the monster in the training ground of your mind and discovered that you have the strength to face it. Gratitude is the quiet antidote to the loud demands of desire. While the restless mind constantly scans the horizon for what it lacks, this practice gently turns your gaze back to the riches already present within your sphere. The Stoics did not see thankfulness as a passive feeling, but as a disciplined exercise of attention, a way to actively root your mind in what is good, what is sufficient, and what is firmly within your control. Marcus Aurelius began his days with this very ritual. Before stepping into the demanding role of emperor, he would sit in the quiet of the morning and deliberately reflect on the positive qualities of the people he was likely to encounter. He would remind himself of a mentor's wisdom, a colleague's diligence, or a friend's loyalty. This was not naive optimism. It was a strategic preparation of his own mind, ensuring he met the world with a lens of appreciation rather than one of criticism or entitlement. He was, in effect, building his inner citadel with bricks of thankfulness before the day's challenges could even begin. You can cultivate this same resilient perspective through a simple, nightly practice. In the last few minutes before sleep, take a small notebook and write down 3 specific things from your day for which you are grateful. The key is to move beyond generalities. Do not simply write family. Instead, note the way your child laughed at a silly joke, or the comforting warmth of your morning drink, or the simple fact that your legs carried you on a walk. This act of specific recognition forces your mind to sift through the hours and locate the small, often overlooked moments of goodness. It is a tangible way to count your real wealth, the wealth of simple, available experiences that no external circumstance can easily take from you. This nightly audit shifts your mental balance sheet from a record of complaints to a ledger of abundance, training you to want what you already have. That feeling of emotional chaos is ultimately a battle of governance within your own mind. The Stoics held a radical and empowering belief that our rational mind is meant to be the sovereign ruler, the guiding faculty that oversees our passions and impressions. Every technique we have explored, from the mindful pause to the love of fate, is a specific application of this single, universal principle. the rule of reason over the inner world. This is not about becoming cold or unfeeling, but about restoring order where chaos once reigned. Your emotions are not the enemy, but they make for terrible kings. When anger or anxiety sits on the throne, every decision becomes a reaction, every thought a defense. Reason, when given its proper authority, does not eliminate feeling, it simply evaluates it. It asks the essential questions: is this impression true? Is this reaction helpful? Is this within my power? This is the superpower you already possess, the innate capacity to step back and observe the storm from a place of quiet understanding. The Stoic teacher Epictetus offered the foundational statement for this entire practice, reminding us that people are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. The event itself is neutral. It is your faculty of reason that assigns it meaning and, by extension, emotional weight. When you feel a surge of frustration in traffic, it is not the cars causing your distress, but your reasoned judgment, often made in a split second, that this situation is a personal injustice. Your superpower is the ability to call that judgment into question, to use your reason to examine it from all sides. What if this delay is not an injustice, but simply a reality of shared roads? What if it is an opportunity for a few minutes of unexpected quiet? The external situation remains unchanged, but your internal experience is transformed because your guiding faculty, your reason, has chosen a different interpretation. This is the essence of emotional mastery. It is the continual and gentle application of your own innate logic to the landscape of your feelings, ensuring that you, and not a passing storm, remain in command of your inner world. An unkind word or a cutting remark can feel like a physical sting that lingers long after the sound has faded. The Stoic strategy for navigating these verbal challenges rests on a single, liberating truth. An insult only holds power over you if you internally agree with its assessment. The words themselves are just sounds in the air, an external event no different from the wind or the rain. They exist outside the sphere of your control. What remains entirely within your command is your own reasoned judgment about what those words mean, and whether you will allow them to define your sense of self. Your character is not built from the opinions of others, but from the integrity of your own actions. Marcus Aurelius offered a powerful image for this inner steadiness. He wrote, "Be like the promontory against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it. The rock does not argue with the waves, it does not demand they stop crashing. It simply endures, grounded in its own unshakable nature." You can cultivate this same quality, becoming that promontory. When a wave of criticism or an unkind remark washes against you, your first and most powerful move is to simply refuse to assent to its verdict. You pause and observe the impression it creates, that initial flare of heat or tension, without adding the fuel of your agreement. You mentally step back and ask, is this true? Does this person's opinion define my worth? The answer, when you really listen, is always a quiet but firm no. From this place of inner clarity, your practical response becomes clear. The most effective course is often to simply let the remark pass, to allow the wave to expend its energy against your calm presence without any reaction. This is not weakness but immense strength. By not engaging, you demonstrate that the comment has failed to find a target. It has not reached your core. In situations where a response feels necessary, perhaps to maintain a professional standard or to correct a genuine misunderstanding, the Stoic path points toward an unexpected direction: kindness. To respond with calmness and even courtesy to someone who has been unkind is not an act of submission. It is a profound display of your own inner freedom. You are showing that their words have not disturbed your peace, and you are meeting their lack of reason with your own unwavering composure. You answer the chaos of an unkind remark with the quiet order of your character, leaving the disturbance entirely on their side of the encounter. An obstacle is the path itself, not a detour from it. This is the core of a life lived with amor fati, where every challenge is actively transformed into the fuel for your own growth. Think of a blacksmith working metal. The hammer strikes are not an attack on the raw material. They are the very process that forges its strength and purpose. In the same way, the difficulties you face are not meaningless blockades. They are the necessary pressure that shapes your character, building resilience where there was once fragility and revealing courage where comfort once resided. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius faced constant pressure, from political challenges to personal transitions, yet his private writings reveal a man who consistently used these very pressures as his training ground. He did not wish for an easier reign. He saw each hardship as an opportunity to practice patience, justice, and wisdom. This is the meaning behind the famous Stoic phrase, "The obstacle is the way." The thing that stands in your path does not block your progress. It becomes the substance of your progress. Your capacity for patience is not built in times of ease, but in the long, slow line at the grocery store or the frustrating delay of a project. Your courage is not revealed in the absence of fear, but in the moment you choose to move forward despite its presence. The obstacle is not merely something to be endured. It is the curriculum for the person you are becoming, so bring to mind a current challenge in your own life, a source of frustration or worry. Now reframe it entirely. See it not as a problem to be eliminated, but as a training ground specifically designed for you. If it is a difficult person, they are your teacher in patience and understanding. If it is a financial pressure, it is your instructor in resourcefulness and clarity. If it is a setback, it is your lesson in humility and redirection. The raw material of the situation has not changed, but your relationship to it is utterly transformed. You are no longer a passive participant in circumstance. You are an active participant in your own development, using every single thing that happens, especially the hard things, as the very means of your ascent. Your entire day is a training ground, and every evening offers a quiet space to review your progress. This is the Stoic practice of the evening review, a deliberate and honest conversation with yourself about how you lived the hours now past. It is not about self-criticism or dwelling on missteps, but about closing the feedback loop essential for genuine growth. Think of it as the daily maintenance for your inner citadel, a time to see which bricks were laid firmly and which need a little more mortar. The goal is simple: to learn from today so you can meet tomorrow with a little more wisdom and a little more calm. The philosopher Seneca was a devoted practitioner of this ritual. In his letters, he describes how he would end each day by asking his own soul three pointed questions. Where did you succeed in applying reason today? Where did you let a passing impression carry you away? And what errors did you make that you can avoid tomorrow? He believed this nightly audit it was the key to continuous self-improvement, writing that the spirit should be called to give an account of itself every single day. You can adopt this powerful habit with your own set of gentle questions. Find a few quiet minutes before sleep, perhaps with a small notebook, and reflect. Begin by asking, where did I succeed today? Look for the small victories. Perhaps you paused before reacting to a frustrating message. Maybe you remembered to apply the view from above when a minor concern arose. Acknowledging these successes reinforces the neural pathways of your practice, showing your mind what to repeat. Then, with the same calm curiosity, ask where an impression took control. Did a critical comment from a colleague spark a flash of frustration that lingered? Did a sudden change in plans trigger a wave of unease you carried for hours? Identify the moment without judgment, simply noting where the gap between impression and reaction closed too quickly. Finally, and most importantly, ask how you can do better tomorrow. This turns reflection into preparation. If you were unsettled by criticism, your plan for tomorrow might be to mentally rehearse receiving feedback with calm detachment. If you felt impatient in a long line, your intention could be to see that time as a gift for a few deep breaths. This structured review transforms your days from a series of random events into a curated curriculum for building an unshakable character. Stoic resilience is the quiet art of emerging from hardship not just intact but fundamentally upgraded. This is not mere endurance, a white-knuckle grip until the storm passes. It is the active process of using the storm itself as the very force that strengthens your foundations. Think of a tree growing on a wind-swept coastline. The constant pressure from the wind does not break it. Instead, the tree responds by driving its roots deeper and strengthening its trunk, becoming more resilient with every season. Your practice of prosoche, of pausing before you react, is like those deepening roots. Your application of the dichotomy of control is the sturdy trunk, allowing the winds of circumstance to blow around you without upending your core. Every time you consciously choose your response instead of defaulting to a reaction, you are not just getting through a difficult moment, you are actively forging a philosophical immune system, an inner defense that learns from every challenge and becomes more adept at preserving your peace. This system does not make you immune to life's pressures, but it ensures that each pressure leaves you wiser and more robust than before. What is one challenge you have faced that, in hindsight, carved a deeper capacity for patience or understanding within you? That is the signature of Stoic resilience at work, transforming the raw material of difficulty into the substance of your own unshakable character. All these practices, from mindful attention to loving your fate, converge toward a single, luminous purpose. The ultimate aim of Stoicism was never merely emotional steadiness for its own sake. That inner calm is not the destination, but the essential foundation for a far greater achievement, a life lived in harmony with nature. For the Stoics, the word nature held a profound double meaning. It refers first to our own human nature, which is to be rational, social beings designed for cooperation and virtue. But it also points to the nature of the entire cosmos itself, the intelligent, interconnected web of cause and effect that the Greeks called the logos. To live in agreement with nature, therefore, means to live as a fully realized human being, using your reason to guide your actions for the common good, while accepting your place within the grand, unfolding order of the universe. The founder of Stoicism, Zeno, is said to have defined the goal of life simply as living in agreement with nature. His successor, Cleans, added that this means living in accord with our own experience of what happens by nature. This is the deep why behind every how you have learned. Why pause before you react, so that your response can be thoughtful, not chaotic? Why distinguish what is yours from what is not? So you can focus your energy on acting with integrity, rather than trying to control what lies beyond your influence. Why practice the view from above? To see your small part in the vast whole and act accordingly. Inner clarity quiets the noise so you can hear the clear, steady signal of your own rational purpose. Imagine a musician tuning an instrument. The process of adjusting the strings is not the performance. It is the necessary preparation that makes beautiful music possible. In the same way, your daily practice of mindful attention, of understanding what you can and cannot shape, of reflecting on life's transitions, is the tuning of your soul. It prepares you to play your unique part in the symphony of human existence with harmony and grace. A life of flourishing, of genuine fulfillment, is the music that results. It is a life where your actions align with your deepest values, where you contribute to your community with a generous spirit, and where you meet every circumstance, welcome or not, as a meaningful part of your own growth. This is the Stoic aim, the target that gives purpose to every step of your journey. A common misunderstanding paints the Stoic as a cold, unfeeling statue, untouched by the joys and sorrows of life. This could not be further from the truth. Stoicism was never designed to eliminate your emotions, but to free you from being enslaved by the irrational and overwhelming ones. The goal is not to suppress a feeling like grief when you experience a personal transition, but to prevent that grief from spiraling into a consuming despair that paralyzes your ability to function and care for others. The ancient Stoics themselves experienced the full spectrum of human feeling, but they cultivated the wisdom to navigate those feelings without being capsized by them. They distinguished between the initial, involuntary pang of sadness, which is a natural and human response, and the subsequent, voluntary act of fueling that sadness with thoughts of unfairness and permanent ruin, which is where true difficulty takes root. It is the difference between feeling a wave of sorrow and voluntarily diving into the ocean, allowing yourself to be pulled under by its current. One is a sensation, the other is a choice. This practice is about mastering the choice, not denying the sensation. Another frequent misconception is that this philosophy encourages passivity, a quiet surrender to whatever life throws your way. In reality, Stoicism is a call to profoundly virtuous and effective action. Remember, the discipline of desire guides you to want only what is truly good, which is to act with integrity, and the discipline of action directs you to do your duty for the common good. This is not a passive stance. Imagine two people facing the same social injustice. One person becomes so consumed by rage at the unfairness that their actions are haphazard, alienating potential allies and burning out quickly. The other, guided by Stoic principles, also sees the injustice clearly and feels a deep desire to correct it, but they channel that desire through reason. They pause to assess what is within their control, they strategize the most effective actions, and they proceed with steady, resilient determination, their energy focused on what they can actually achieve rather than being diluted by fury over what they cannot. The Stoic is not passive, they are persistently, intelligently active, their efforts powered by a calm and enduring fuel rather than a volatile and quickly spent one. Perhaps the most subtle pitfall is using Stoic language as a shield for emotional avoidance. This happens when someone, fearing the vulnerability of their own feelings, uses the philosophy as a justification to never address them. They might dismiss a partner's need for emotional conversation by claiming they are simply being stoic and rational. But this is not rationality. It is a refusal to engage in the difficult inner work the practice actually demands. True Stoic practice requires you to turn toward your impressions with mindful attention, to examine them with honest reflection, and to understand their roots. Avoiding a difficult feeling altogether is the opposite of the Stoic pause. It is a bypass. The pause creates space for understanding, while avoidance simply builds a wall to keep the feeling out. One leads to inner freedom, the other to a brittle inner fortress that can easily crack under pressure. The path to genuine emotional mastery is not a detour around your humanity, but a courageous journey straight through its very heart, equipped with the timeless tools of reason and perspective. Your journey began with a single, powerful moment of awareness, the practice of Prosoche, learning to notice the spark of an impression before it became a flame. From that foundational pause, you explored how to examine your judgments, distinguish what is truly yours to influence, and ultimately embrace your path, seeing every challenge as the very way forward. This entire pathway leads to one undeniable truth. Your peace is an inner creation, never an external reward. It is built from the consistent application of your own reason, a quiet strength that holds firm regardless of the shifting world around you. Marcus Aurelius, who navigated immense responsibilities, found his center in this same understanding, writing, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. The tranquility he describes is not the absence of difficulty, but the deep calm that comes from fully accepting what lies beyond your reach while taking full ownership of all that remains within it, your judgments, your actions, and your character. This is not a distant ideal, but a daily practice that begins with the smallest of steps. You do not need to master every principle at once. Start with just one. Perhaps it is the simple, conscious pause before you speak in a moment of frustration. Or maybe it is the 5-minute evening reflection, a gentle conversation with yourself about the day now past. Choose one practice and carry it with you tomorrow. We would love to hear which Stoic tool you will take into your own life. Share your first step in the comments below and join a community of others walking this same path toward clarity and calm. Your inner sanctuary awaits, and the first stone is already in your